Hey there, survivors. If you can hear me, it means you're still alive. This is Jack's Nightmares, and where you listen from, I'm glad you made it. Now, get comfortable, and this is your next story.
The first thing I see is blood on the inside of the airlock window. I am halfway down the connector with a clipboard in one hand and a box of temperature tags under my arm when the outer alarm starts pulsing. Not the fire alarm, not the weather alert. It is the access alarm Erin uses when somebody opens the wrong sequence on the double door. One short burst, pause, two more. I stop hard enough to hit my shoulder on the wall, and the box slips from under my arm and scatters tags across the floor. The airlock sits at the far end of the machine bay behind two layers of fogged glass and a steel frame painted yellow 10 years ago and scratched to bare metal at the latch. Through the outer pane, I can see Noah jammed against the left wall inside the vestibule, one boot braced on the bench, both hands up. Curtis Vale, the loadmaster from the supply plane, is on the floor at Noah's feet trying to drag himself backward with one arm. The other arm is pinned under a man in a flight jacket who should not be moving the way he is moving. The man in the jacket was on the sled 5 minutes ago. He was barely conscious then, head hanging, one glove off, blood dried around his mouth from coughing into his neck gaiter. Rena had her medkit open on the floor and was telling Erin to keep the inner line sealed. Now his face is pressed against Noah's sleeve and his hands keep grabbing for purchase on the rubber floor mats, while Noah tries to keep his own neck clear of the man's mouth. Erin is already at the inner control panel when I reach her. She is hitting the service lock with the side of her fist and shouting through the cracked speaker grill into the vestibule. "Move left. Noah, move left. Curtis, stay down." The speaker pops with feedback. The man on the floor lunges again. Curtis gets a boot under the bench and shoves himself clear by inches. Noah reaches for the fire extinguisher mounted by the hooks, tears it loose, and drives the metal bottom into the side of the man's head. The impact knocks him sideways into the bench frame. He does not stay down. Rena pushes past me with the capture pole from the gear rack, the one we keep for bear control when an animal gets too close to camp. She shoves the shaft at Noah through the narrow service hatch. "Take it. Loop the neck. Do not let him inside." Noah snatches it with one hand. The man in the jacket gets to both knees and turns toward the warmer side of the vestibule. Not the open hatch, not the cold door, straight toward the inner seal where the station heat leaks around the frame. Curtis starts yelling that he got bitten. Erin does not answer him. She throws the override on the side hatch instead. Cold wind blasts through the service entry as Calic yanks it open from outside. Noah gets the loop over the man's upper chest, not clean around the neck, and drives him sideways into the wall while snow blows in around his boots. Joanasi comes through the side opening low and fast with a pry bar in both hands. He does not waste time speaking. He brings the bar down once behind the ear. The man collapses against the bench. Noah keeps the pole locked on him for another few seconds. Nobody in the corridor says a word until Joanasi looks through the glass and gives one short nod. Curtis is crying and trying not to. He has his left sleeve half torn off, and there is a deep bite on his forearm through the base layer and jacket lining. Blood is moving down over his wrist and dripping off 2 fingers. Rena is on the speaker again, giving orders with her voice flat and clear. "Curtis, do not touch your face. Keep the arm high. Noah, strip out a layer and bag it. Joanasi, stay off the clean line." Erin turns to me without taking her eyes off the vestibule window. "Board, names, times, contact type, start now." I drop to one knee by the whiteboard bolted to the machine bay wall and start writing with the black marker tied to it on a piece of frayed cord. Patient from the aircraft. Direct physical struggle with Noah Greer and Curtis Vale in the outer vestibule. Curtis Vale, bite to left forearm. Rena Polk, close medical contact, shielded, gloved. Erin Voss, door control only. Calic Natar and Joanasi Itu Look, exterior assist, Malik Rahman. No direct contact. My writing is too big on the first line. I force the next lines tighter. The marker squeaks each time the tip catches dried disinfectant on the board. The station around us keeps running while the board fills up. Main generator hum under the floor. Dryer fan in the laundry corner. Heater, cycling in the south connector every few seconds. Dishes from breakfast still in the galley sink. The place sounds normal except for Curtis cursing inside the airlock and the storm trying to get in around the side hatch. That part lands hard. 1 minute we are unloading food, mail, filters, medical stock, and a crate of sample foam. The next minute we are dividing the station into clean and dirty halves with tape and folding chairs. I work at Arctic Echo Station as the climate data analyst on the Joint Ice Survey team. That sounds neat on paper. Most days it means numbers, maintenance logs, weather pools during the satellite window, and fuel math nobody notices unless the chart turns bad. Out here the chart turns bad before people feel it. Leaking heat, weak batteries, clogged filters, storm drift over the runway markers, diesel draw above plan. I live inside the station's routine enough to hear when a fan has changed pitch. I know which corridor gives back heat first when the wind comes around from the west. I know how fast our water tank drops when the laundry runs too long. None of that helps if somebody opens the wrong door with a sick man on the other side, but it gives me something to do while everyone else looks for a person to blame. Erin takes the first step before anyone can argue. She tears 3 strips of red tape off the roll clipped to the emergency shelf and marks a line across the floor from the tool cabinet to the fuel drum rack. Warm zone ends here, she says. Nothing crosses into living space without clothing change and wash. Marta Klein appears in the bay door with both hands wet from the galley sink and asks one question. How many clothing changes? Erin says, as many as it takes. Marta turns around and heads for the laundry bins without another word. Grant Mercer finally reaches the bay from the lab side. He stops dead at the board, reads Curtis's name, then looks through the inner glass into the airlock. Where's the pilot? He asks. Nobody answers him fast enough. He turns toward Erin. The refrigerated medical tote is still on the aircraft. The insulin and temperature-sensitive stock cannot sit out there in crosswind. Erin points at the red tape line with one finger and says, "Cargo waits." Grant starts to say more. Joanasi pulls the side hatch shut behind him, dogs the latch, and speaks first. "Open the aircraft now and you do this again." Grant looks at the pry bar in his hand, then at the man on the floor behind Noah, then closes his mouth. Rena sets up a wash station right there in the machine bay. No fantasy fix. No speech about magic chemicals. Hot water from the service sink. Soap, clean towels. Saline bottles for eyes and mouth if fluid got near either. Bagged clothes on one side, clean clothes on the other. Nothing mixed. She has Ava flushing both eyes over a basin within seconds, even though Ava keeps saying she does not think anything hit her. "Not guessing," Rena says. "Wash now." Noah strips down to his thermal layer in the warm zone while Callach holds a task light over his neck, hands, and face. Rena checks every inch of exposed skin she can see. No open wound. No splash to the eye. Noah stands there in wet socks on the cold concrete and says he is fine. Erin tells him he can be fine after he gets in clean clothes. Curtis keeps asking to come inside the clinic. He says the bite is not deep. He says the man on the plane had a seizure. He says he needs antibiotics and heat. Rena answers each point once through the speaker. "You are getting heat in the vestibule. You are not crossing the clean line. Keep the wound high. Do not touch your face. Rinse your mouth." He spits blood and saliva into the drain grate and says, "This is insane." I write his words on the board only in shorter form. Agitated, oriented, demanding transfer. Rena sees me doing it and nods once. If he changes fast, we need the time written down. The supply plane sits 60 yards from the station with the port hatch open and the cargo net visible inside. One prop is stopped. The other is feathered. The pilot answered once on approach and once after landing. He said he was staying in the cockpit. No one has heard him since. Dean Holloway is in comms trying the aircraft frequency and emergency band one after another, with the headset clamped over one ear and the speaker low. Erin told him to keep transmissions short and leave out details. Dean heard the order. Whether he follows it is another question. I pick up the temperature tags I dropped in the connector and carry the box back to the data room. My desk is where I left it 6 minutes before the alarm. Coffee cup cooling beside the keyboard. Morning heat drift on the left screen. Fuel draw by module on the right. The weak spot in the south corridor is still red on the map, the same one I marked before the plane came in. I print the chart again and bring it to Erin. She studies the south wall line, then the port window, then the board with the exposures. If anything starts hanging around the warm side, she says, I want to know which vent is drawing it. That is my lane. Not medicine, not engines. Heat loss, airflow, usage, timing. I tape the new chart to the board beside the names. Our station is 6 linked modules on steel skids over packed snow and ice, hab block, galley and common room, lab wing, data room and comms, machine bay, short utility connectors between them with 2-door separations that work well for weather and badly for panic. The walls are good enough against wind and cold. They were not built to keep one part of the crew from another. Once one threshold gets dirty, every route through the station changes. One blocked connector turns a quick walk into a longer one through cold ground or machine space. One person with a bad idea can put that on everyone at once. Erin Voss runs station operations and acts like she was born tired of other people's excuses. That is useful out here. Noah Greer keeps the generators, heater loops, tracked hauler and snowmobiles alive with wire, hose clamps, and bad language he mostly saves for equipment. Rena Polk covers medical, field checks, and the small clinic alcove in the lab block. Marta runs the galley, dry storage, and laundry rotation. Joanna C. and Callach handle route work, runway markers, and anything on sea ice that can get a person stranded fast. Ava Sutter is the youngest on the team, sharp in the lab, slower when the room changes pace. Grant Mercer heads the American Grant side and keeps looking at the expedition through paperwork even while blood is drying on the airlock floor. Dean runs comms and instrumentation, and if the station ever gets sold out by one loose transmission, he is the most likely hand to do it. By late morning, we have the first clean routines forced into place. Dirty boots left at the line, clothing change at the machine bay, used outerwear into marked bags, or straight into a hot wash if contamination is uncertain. No one enters the hab corridor from the warm side without another person watching the wash. Marta builds the clothing station out of stacked bins, spare thermals, and folded station sweats. She moves fast, hard, and quiet. That tells me more than if she started crying or shouting. She is scared enough to stop wasting motion. Ava sits on an overturned bucket while Rena checks her eyes a second time. No redness, Rena says. No tearing now. You go nowhere near the line till I say. Ava asks if she can at least get back to the lab fridge and finish sorting the morning cores. Erin says no. Ava looks at the floor and says, then what am I doing? Marta walks past with 2 armfuls of folded towels and drops half of them into Ava's lap. You're helping me keep people in dry clothes. Ava does not argue. She starts folding. Noah and I go over the cargo manifest at the whiteboard. He points with a grease-stained fingernail at the generator filters, heater igniters, and hydraulic fluid listed for the incoming load. I need those inside before dark if that wind picks up, he says. If we lose the hauler belt, we lose outside hauling. I point at the refrigerated med tote and the clinic lock pouch. Rena wants those too. Noah drags his hand over his face and looks through the glass at Curtis slumped on the bench. We're not opening that aircraft till Erin says, I know. He knows, but that does not make the missing cargo smaller. At 12:43, Callach comes in through the side service hatch with loose snow on his shoulders and says the pilot door is open on the plane. Erin asks if he saw movement. He says not then. We all move to the machine bay port window without needing to be told. The aircraft sits flat on the runway edge with the hatch still open on the cargo side and the cockpit door cracked wide. A shape moves behind the fuselage, then steps clear. The pilot is upright. His hat is gone. One sleeve is half rolled. He is not heading away from the aircraft or waving for help. He angles toward the station in short, uneven steps, then stops near a runway marker and turns his head toward the south wall, where the utility vent throws a ribbon of warmer air into the lee. Do not open anything, Erin says before Grant can speak. The pilot keeps coming. He does not run. He does not call out. He drifts in the same direction the first man tried to go when he hit the vestibule, straight toward heat. Joannazi points through the glass at the vent line. That one first, he says, then laundry, then generator wall, if the wind swings. I pull the printed heat map from my pocket and flatten it against the window. The south corridor leak I logged before breakfast sits on the same line as the utility vent. A bad seal this morning turns into an open invitation by noon. Curtis starts shaking on the bench around the same time the pilot reaches the wall. Rena checks him through the glass again and asks the orientation questions. Name, station, date, bite location. He gets the name right, and the rest wrong or not at all. Sweat stands on his face despite the cold air in the vestibule. He says he wants water, then slaps the cup away when Noah passes it through the hatch. He keeps looking at the inner seal more than at the people in front of him. I add a line to the board. Mental status change beginning around 12:50. Rena reads the time and tells me to circle it. That is when she checks the clinic stock. She goes into the alcove with her clipboard and keyring and comes back less than a minute later with the clipboard tucked under one arm and the broken tamper strip from the cold box pinched between two fingers. "Who opened my refrigerator?" she asks. Nobody answers. She steps back into the alcove, opens the under-counter unit again, and starts naming missing items so I can write them down. 2 broad-spectrum antibiotic packs, 4 anti-inflammatory syringes, 3 intravenous bags, 2 insulin vials, 1 sedative case. Then she unlocks the upper cabinet and checks the shelf cards. Dressings are present, pain meds present, narcotic pouch sealed. The missing stock is not random. It is the stock somebody would pull if he wanted leverage, private backup, or a quiet stash. Grant says the sheet could be old. Rena holds the last full inventory card up where he can see the date and my signature at the bottom. We did the count together during the storm 2 nights ago. Grant reads it, says nothing, and looks away first. Erin asks who had access before the red line went down. Rena answers without emotion. Anyone with a station key or a bad habit. That lands harder than if she shouted. Marta stops folding towels in the galley doorway and stares at the clinic alcove. Ava looks from face to face and sees what the rest of us already know. The station does not have 1 problem, it has 2. Erin takes the key ring from Rena, hangs a fresh sign-out sheet on the wall by the toolboard, and says every cabinet, locker, storage rack, and medicine box gets opened with a witness from now on. Dean asks if that includes comms spares. Erin says yes. Noah asks if that includes hydraulic shelves in the bay. Erin says yes again. Joannazi leans on the pry bar and watches everyone's face while the rule settles in. Nobody likes it. That is not part of the decision. The first time the unknown voice comes over the radio, I am in the data room cutting the heat set point for the south corridor and preparing a reduced use plan for the laundry and common room. Dean should have kept the emergency band quiet. He does not. I hear him through the wall. Echo station to any relay. We have medical emergency. Limited secure access. Possible contagion event. 1 injured. Aircraft compromised. The chair goes over behind me when I stand up. By the time I get to comms, Erin is already there reaching for the transmit switch. Dean keeps talking until she slaps his hand aside. The reply comes through a burst of static and carrier hiss. Male voice. Engine running somewhere behind him. Not aircraft. Ground engine. Echo station. We read you. We are in range and able to assist with fuel, transport, or medical support. State your condition. Erin cuts speaker volume with 2 fingers and stares at Dean until he looks away. Joannasi steps in behind me, hears the last of the engine noise, and says, "Snow machine or tracked rig. Not near enough to see. Near enough to hear you." Dean says somebody answered. Joannasi says, "That is not always good." We do not answer the voice. It calls twice more over the next 20 minutes. Each time it offers help. Each time it names 1 thing we are likely to need. Fuel, space for injured people, a relay to the south. Dean looks ready to answer every time. Erin plants herself in the comms doorway and tells him if he touches the transmit key again without approval, he will spend the night sleeping in the cold connector with the mop bucket. That gets a tight laugh out of nobody. Dean turns the speaker lower and keeps listening anyway. Outside, the pilot reaches the south wall and leans one shoulder against the siding below the vent line. He stays there with his face turned toward the station skin. 20 minutes later, Callach spots another figure beyond the fuel bladders. Maybe a station hand from some other outpost. Maybe nobody we know. Hard to tell with snow skimming the flats and both arms hanging stiff at the sides. That one drifts toward the generator hut. None of them pound on the walls. None of them shout. They stay close to the warm points and wait. That is worse than running. Running would at least tell us what they were doing. I pull up the station heat loss map again and start marking every exterior point that could draw anything from the snow. Laundry vent, utility vent, generator hut line, machine bay door seams, south corridor weak seal. Erin studies the chart over my shoulder and tells Noah to cut non-essential heat in the common room after supper. Noah says we can save fuel or keep the plumbing happy. Doing both is not on offer. Erin says, save fuel first. We can shut one loop and move bunks if we need to. Grant protests that the lab cores need stable interior temperature. Noah tells him the cores can sleep in his bunk if he is so worried about them. Curtis turns before sunset. I am writing a fresh line on the exposure board when the bench in the vestibule slams the wall hard enough to shake the hooks above it. Curtis had been lying under 2 blankets with the bitten arm tied loose to the frame after he started pouring at the bandage. Now he is on his feet with 1 blanket wrapped around his shin and the strap dragging from his wrist. He hits the inner pane with both hands and snaps his teeth at the seal where the warm air bleeds around the frame. Rena grabs Ava by the elbow and jerks her backward from the line. Noah is already moving for the capture pole again. Erin does not ask for opinions. Service side, she says. Callach and Joannesy are through the exterior hatch first, snow blowing around their legs. Noah follows with the pole and a face shield pulled down over his eyes. Curtis slams into the bench, rebounds, and goes for movement. They catch him low, pin him across the seat, and hold him there through the struggle until the motion stops. The whole thing lasts under a minute. It feels longer only when I have to write the time on the board and leave space under his name for final status. My hand leaves a black streak where the marker slips. Marta serves food after that with no table, no talk, no second trip. Small bowls of stew, bread halves, water cups. Eat where you sit. Wash your own spoon. She gives Grant the same size portion she gives everyone else even when he opens his mouth to object. He sees her face and closes it again. Ava sits on an upturned crate in a clean sweatshirt 2 sizes too big and stares at the bowl until Rena tells her to start eating. Dean listens to the radio with the speaker near silent and writes unknown frequency notes in the margin of the log. Noah strips his outer gear for the second full wash of the day and checks his hands under the light 1 finger at a time. Joannesy and Callach go back outside after dark to check the vent lines and the machine bay latch. They come back with frost on their eyebrows and report 3 figures on the south wall and 1 near the generator hut. Rena inventories the clinic again before she lets herself sit down. Missing items stay missing. No miracle reappearance. No simple explanation. Erin makes everyone empty pockets and open personal lockers in pairs. The search turns up nothing useful. Socks, chocolate, a nicotine pack from Marta's pantry, a flashlight battery Dean should have signed out 2 days ago. No antibiotics, no insulin, no sedatives. That makes it worse. If the stock is still inside the station, whoever took it planned farther ahead than a panic grab. I lower the south corridor set point another 4 degrees and watch the trend line crawl down on the screen. If the wall cools enough, maybe anything outside will drift toward the generator hut instead. If the line drops too far, the pipe run in the corner chase will start giving us trouble by morning. That is how the work goes out here. Every fix opens another weak spot. I print the revised chart and pin it up beside the exposure board. Erin tells me to start a second ledger for all outside contacts. Radio and visual, time, location, direction of movement, distance if known. I label the top line in block letters and write the first entry. The first entry goes on the page clean. 9:14 at night. Unknown male voice on open band. Engine noise behind transmission. Offered fuel, transport, medical support. No reply sent. 3 figures on south wall. 1 figure near generator hut. Wind west by northwest. Visibility fair with ground drift. I underline no reply sent and leave room beneath it for the next call. Dean stands in the comms doorway with 1 hand on the frame and watches me write. He wants me to ask Erin again about answering. I can see it in the way he keeps shifting his weight and licking his lips before he speaks. Erin takes the choice away from him. She comes in behind us, looks at the clock over the map board, and says we are on noise discipline after 10. No radio, unless somebody is outside or the wall gets breached. No one uses the machine bay door unless 2 people are present. No one steps into the warm zone alone. She gives Noah the midnight wall check, Kalak the first exterior listen from the service hatch, and me the heat monitor. Dean opens his mouth once. Erin points at the speaker and says one loose transmission already gave strangers our condition. She will not let him do it twice. He looks at the floor and says nothing back. I spend the first part of the night moving between the data room and the machine bay board. South corridor set point down 4 degrees. Utility vent flow stable. Laundry loop reduced. Generator load slightly lower than the last chart, which buys us time and nothing else. Every time I go through the common room, I see the station getting smaller. Marta has pushed 2 tables against the wall to open floor space for extra cots if we have to abandon the dorm corridor. The overheads are half off. The galley heat lamps are dark. Bowls from supper are drying upside down on towels by the sink instead of running through a full hot cycle. Ava is asleep in a chair in clean clothes with 1 boot still on. Grant is not asleep. He is at the far end of the table with his tablet dark in front of him, fingers pressed flat against the wood, staring at the clinic door. At 10:03, the unknown man comes back on the radio. Dean does not touch the transmit key this time. He only turns the speaker down and writes while the voice talks. The caller says he is from a survey outfit south of the coast route. He says 3 men are with him, enough room for passengers if we have injured people, and enough fuel to tow if our station machines are failing. He says he heard the emergency call and came north to help. That is polished enough to bother me. Men who are truly helping start with who they are and where they are. This man starts with what he thinks we need. He speaks for about 15 seconds and stops. Erin waits without moving till the carrier drops. Then she tells Dean to note word choice and engine sound. Dean says word choice is not a technical category. Erin says it is now. The night settles down after that. No impact on the walls. No scraping at the doors. That quiet does not help. It keeps everyone listening harder. At 11:30, Kalak opens the service hatch 2 inches and kills the bay lights while I watch the thermal strip chart in the data room through the inner window. He listens for 30 seconds, closes the hatch, and reports 4 figures on the warm side now. 1 is directly under the utility vent. 1 is by the laundry exhaust. 2 are close to the generator hut wall. He could hear fabric moving in the wind when 1 shifted position. No voices. No running. Erin asks whether any are at the fuel bladders. He says no. That gives Noah enough peace to get through his generator check without a rifle escort, though Joannesi goes with him anyway carrying the flare gun and the heavy pry bar. After midnight, the south corridor starts dropping faster than planned. At first, I think it is the lower set point doing what I asked. Then the pipe chase temperature dips below the projected line and keeps going. I pull the panel trend for the circulation loop and see the pump cycling too often. Noah comes in when I call and reads the screen in silence. He touches the edge of the monitor with 1 dirty finger, tracing the drop. Either the valve's icing up, he says, or the wall leak got bigger. Erin asks if it can wait till morning. Noah shakes his head before she finishes. If the corner run freezes, the wash station goes next, and then half the station routing goes with it. We suit up for an interior check first. No door opening, no outside work unless we have no other option. The south corridor feels different the second I step into it. Not colder in the general way. Colder in 1 strip along the floor and the lower right wall, where the pipe chase turns toward the machine bay. The light over the junction flickers once while Noah drops the service panel. Frost has built around the lower seam from inside. That means the leak is deeper than the gasket. He runs his gloved hand along the metal and stops at the back corner. Something moved the panel from outside, he says. The screws are not backed out, but the whole cover has shifted a 1/4 inch. Erin asks if the wind could do it. Noah says not through the frame and not with 2 screws still biting. Joannesi kneels with his head close to the seam and taps the metal once with his knuckle. We all hear the answer from inside the chase, a soft scrape, then nothing. Noah turns off the corridor light and all 4 of us stand in the dark for a second listening. The scrape comes again, farther down, then a dull bump against the inside of the chase cover. Erin backs us toward the connector and tells Kalak through the handheld to hold the service hatch, and no one opens any exterior door. Noah takes the drill from the tool pouch and removes the upper screws one at a time, while Joannessi keeps the pry bar ready. The panel bows out half an inch on the last screw. Cold air pushes through the gap carrying dust, rust flakes, and a smell like wet wool that sat too long in a sealed bin. Noah pulls the panel open. Something slams into it from inside, hard enough to kick the bottom edge off his boot. He falls back against the wall. A hand comes through the gap, gloved once, bare at the fingertips now, skin split from cold, reaching blind for heat. Joannessi brings the pry bar down and pins the wrist to the metal lip. Noah gets the panel wide. The body in the chase is jammed across the lower run, shoulders twisted, face grey-white with frost, eyes open. It had crawled in from the exterior service hatch under the wall skin where the seal failed. It moves at us the second the panel swings. The corridor is too tight for panic. That is the only thing that helps. Erin has one hand on my sleeve keeping me off the line, while Noah drives the drill motor housing into the side of the head, and Joannessi holds the shoulders off the pipe with the bar. Kalak arrives from the far side with the catch pole and slips the loop over one arm, then the neck when the body bucks again. The pole locks. Noah uses the opening to force the body backward into the chase till the movement stops. Rena comes in after the noise with saline, dressings, and a lamp. She checks Noah's hands first, then Joannassi's, then Kalak's face shield. No visible exposure. The pipe insulation is torn in two places, and one of the circulation hoses has a shallow gouge where teeth or a boot buckle scraped through the outer layer. Noah says we got lucky and then corrects himself. No, we got there early. He patches the gouge with cold wrap and clamps the loose insulation while I note the time, location, and entry path in the outside contact ledger. My hand is steady now. The first pages were not. That find changes the station more than the airlock did. The outer figures are no longer only a wall problem. They can find vents, seams, and service gaps. Erin shuts down the south corridor entirely and reroutes the sleeping plan before 2 in the morning. The dorm block on that side goes dark and cold. Everyone not already on watch drags cots, blankets, and personal bags into the common room. Marta gives up the last empty dry storage shelf for extra clothing. Ava carries bedding with both arms full and stops asking what she should do. Dean complains once about the noise of moving the comms battery packs. Erin tells him he can sleep in comms if he wants, and if he wants the door protected, he can stack his own chairs. He stacks the chairs. We do not sleep much after that. Rena checks the wash station twice, clinic once, and every hand that crossed the south corridor. Noah and I build a new heat draw chart around the reduced station footprint. With the corridor shut down and the dorm set back, fuel numbers improve on one line and worsen on another. The main loop runs hotter through the remaining living space, which pushes load back onto the generator and leaves less margin if one heating element fails. That is how every fix behaves now. Joannessi goes out once before dawn with Kalak on the side service route to inspect the exterior hatch where the crawlspace breach happened. They find the lower grate bent inward and one hinge screw stripped. Not weather, not accident. Something worked it loose over time, drawn by warm air. Kalak says there are marks in the snow too, not from the outside figures at the wall. Boots, human. 2 different tread patterns near the service side berm, partly drifted over. Morning comes grey and hard. No sunrise worth naming, only the windows lifting from black to dirty blue. Marta hands out oatmeal and a thin strip of fried spam from the last open can. Nobody complains. That tells me more than words would. Grant finally speaks while people are eating and asks the question everybody is carrying. How long can we hold this if we stop all outside work? Noah gives him the answer without softening it. Not long enough to like. He points at the board where I wrote the overnight changes. 1 corridor closed. 1 breach in the service chase. 4 or more outside figures on warm walls. Unknown radio contact with machine in range. Missing clinic stock unresolved. 1 aircraft on the runway holding parts, food and med cargo. Grant looks at the line about med cargo and says we should have gone to the plane when there were only 2 bodies outside. Erin says if he has a machine that turns the clock back, he can use it after breakfast. After the meal, Erin orders a paired search of every bunk, locker, crate and workstation inside the clean zone. No speeches, no vote. Marta and Ava take the galley and laundry. Rena and Erin search the clinic, supply shelves, and common room bags. Noah takes the machine bay tools with Callach watching. Dean and Grant get paired together in comms and lab storage, which neither of them likes. I work the data room, the map cabinet, and the lower archive drawers with Joannesy standing at the door. The search turns up exactly the sort of private margin people build when they think rules may collapse. Dean hid spare batteries and a bottle of cheap whiskey in a cable bag under the comms console. Marta tucked chocolate squares and nicotine gum into a flour bin. Ava had 2 extra thermal shirts under the cot mattress she took last night. Noah had a sealed pouch of heater igniter pins stashed behind the hydraulic shelf. None of that shocks me. The missing medical stock does not appear. That is worse. It means whoever took it had time, a plan, and a hiding place better than any of the obvious ones. The unknown man calls again at 9:22. This time, Erin decides silence is not buying us enough. She tells Dean to keep the answer under 10 seconds. No names, no condition, no numbers. Dean keys up and says, "Identify yourself and your exact position." The reply comes back fast, almost ready. "North Coast Survey, Winter Rig Team. We're south of your line near the old fuel cache. 3 men, 1 tracked unit, 2 sleds. We can trade and haul. We heard your emergency last night." Erin motions for the mic. Dean gives it up. She says, "If you are helping, stay where you are and stop approaching the station." The man answers, "We need to see what shape you're in before we commit fuel." Erin cuts the transmission there. Joannesy listens to the dead speaker for a second and says, "He is not south of the line. If he was, he would name the cache by its number." He looks at me. "Write that." By late morning, the plane has to be dealt with. The thermal clock on the med tote is near its limit. Noah needs the generator filters and the hauler belt before we start gambling with a reduced station. Rena wants the clinic pouch and whatever sealed stock remained on the cargo net. Erin draws the sortie on the board in black marker. Team 1 goes from the machine bay side with the low sled and cargo line. Noah for access and lifting. Joannesy for security and route I. Me for manifest, load choice, and time. Callach takes the side berm with binoculars and the rifle to watch the runway edges and the service side drift where human tracks showed. Nobody fires unless the line gets breached. Erin stays on door control. Rena waits at the warm zone with the wash station and fresh bags. Grant says he should go to identify the lab cargo. Erin says lab cargo ranks after med tote, filters, belt, and shelf meals. He can identify what is left if there is time. He does not like that order. He does not get to change it. We go out at 11 with the wind on our right and the light flat enough to hide depth in the drift edges. Noah pulls the sled rope low and fast. I keep the manifest clipped under my outer shell and a grease pencil tied to my wrist. Joannesy moves 1 step ahead of us. Not crouched, not rushed, only careful with each foot placement where the drift skins might break. The nearest body is under the utility vent, shoulders white with blown snow, head turned toward the wall. It does not move as we pass. The one by the generator hut shifts a few inches when the sled runner squeaks over crust. Callach's voice comes once in my earpiece. "Runner side clear, human sign, no visual." Then nothing again. At the aircraft, the cold hits differently, harder in the open with no station wall to cut it. The cargo hatch is still down. 1 tie strap has blown loose and snaps against the metal lip. The pilot is not in the cockpit. He is on the far side of the plane, half buried to the knees, where he drifted against the ski strut and froze in place. Joannesy sees him before I do, and changes our route without a word so we do not pass within arm's reach. Noah climbs the hatch first and starts handing items down exactly in the order we planned. Red med tote, white clinic pouch, belt case, 2 generator filter boxes, 1 crate of vacuum-packed meals, 1 tool bag marked heater parts. I read each off the manifest and mark it with a line. We leave everything else at first. That is the deal. No greed, no extra handling, no long debate in the cold. Then Noah stops halfway through the hold and stares toward the rear bulkhead. "Malik," he says, voice low. "Human tracks in here." I climb up 1 step and look where he points. Fresh snow dust on the cargo floor has 2 clear boot prints crossing from the hatch to the med rack and back. Not ours, not aircrew. The toe pattern is a square lug work boot with a chipped outer edge on the left heel. The med rack lock has scratches around it. Whoever came inside after the landing tried the medical cargo first. That squares too neatly with our missing clinic stock. Joanazi hears me swear under my breath and says, "Move." He is looking past me, out over the runway shoulder. I turn and catch a flash off glass or metal near the marker berm 200 yards out. One blink, then gone. Binoculars maybe, scope maybe, human either way. We finish loading and pull off the plane fast. On the way back, the body under the vent line lifts its head and drags itself off the wall with stiff, ugly effort, drawn by the sled noise or our heat or both. Joanasi angles in and blocks with the pry bar, while Noah yanks the sled around the far side of a drift hump. I go wide with him, looking for footing instead of drama. The body catches the edge of my parka once and tears a strip of shell cloth without reaching skin. Joanasi knocks it sideways into the snow and keeps it there long enough for us to clear. The whole thing costs us maybe 6 seconds. I write torn shell left side on the board the second we are back inside, and Rena cuts the outer layer off me to check the underjacket. No fluid on the inner fabric. No break in the skin. She makes me wash twice anyway, and says she will inspect the area again in an hour. The med tote buys us air. That is what it feels like when Rena opens it and finds the temperature strip still valid and the sealed packs inside undisturbed. She lays everything out on fresh towels, checks expiration dates, and writes a new full inventory on the clinic board with her pen biting into the paper. Antibiotics, intravenous fluids, anti-inflammatory shots, insulin, wound kits, sterile saline, oral meds, and a smaller lock pouch inside with controlled sedatives still sealed. She does not smile. She only exhales once through her nose and keeps working. Noah gets his belt case open and finds the hauler belt intact, filters intact, igniter pins present. He points at the parts and says, "That cuts one deadline." Erin answers, "Not the others." What we brought back from the plane also sharpens the theft problem. The scratched med rack and the prints in the cargo hold tell us someone outside the official station crew had already tried to get into medical stock after the landing. That means there were human boots at the aircraft sometime after the first breach and before our sortie. It does not explain the items missing from Rena's clinic fridge inside the station. It gives us one more path, not a solution. Grant jumps on it right away. He says the missing stock could have been taken from the plane before transfer, and the clinic list could be off in parallel. Rena turns the clinic board toward him so he can see the date of the last full count, my signature, and hers. "The missing items were in this room 2 nights ago," she says. "Somebody here moved them." Grant says nothing after that. He goes back to the table and folds one of the cargo manifests into a smaller square till the paper tears. By afternoon, we confirm the strangers are closer than the radio said. Callach catches movement near the antenna berm through the binoculars and calls me to the machine bay window. 3 men, not 4, using the drift line and the old fuel skid for cover. One has a parka with reflective tape on the chest, commercial workwear, not military. One is broad and slow, moving with a limp or bad boot. The third stays back with a tracked unit parked low behind the ridge, only the cab top showing when the wind drops. They are not coming in hard. They are watching. One kneels at the base of our antenna support and looks toward the station with something in his hands. Dean says it might be a signal meter. Joanasi says it might be a siphon hose too. Erin orders all exterior lights off except the shielded service marker and tells Callach to fire a warning flare into the snow 30 yards short of the berm. He does. The flare punches out red and hisses into the drift. The 3 men break cover at once and drop back behind the ridge. That tells me all I need. Helpers do not test antenna lines under cover. That evening, the station loses another piece. Not to the figures outside, to the load we are carrying inside. The reduced heat setup means every room we kept open is warmer than before, with more bodies in fewer square feet and more damp clothing cycling through the wash station. The dorm block loop goes out at 6:40 with a breaker trip and does not come back clean. Noah finds a cooked relay behind the panel and says he can bypass it, though the bypass will steal from the galley circuit and cut one of the stove elements. Marta hears that and starts repacking supper in her head before he finishes. The common room cots get closer together. Com's battery packs move under the far table. Dean complains that the moisture will ruin his connectors. Marta tells him his connectors can share floor space with her flour sacks, and keeps ladling soup. The same hour, I find my first solid crack in the medical theft timeline. The clinic refrigerator has a built-in temperature logger with a simple door-open spike. It does not record names. It records warm-up events. I pull the graph while checking the new med tote range and see a clear rise 2 nights ago at 2:17 in the morning, lasting nearly 4 minutes. I was awake then, finishing the storm fuel summary in the data room. Noah was in the machine bay thawing the hauler battery under a blanket. Erin was asleep. Marta was asleep. Ava was asleep. Dean had logged off comms at 1:40. Rena had gone to bed near midnight. That leaves only one person I remember moving through the lab wing after 2. Grant. He had been preserving ice core notes and complaining about a corrupted tablet file. I do not accuse him of the graph alone. I copy the time into my pocket notebook and keep going. The next morning brings a smaller panic and a clearer decision. Ava slips on wet concrete in the machine bay and catches herself on the cart, but not before the corner of the med tote clips her shin. The cut is shallow and clean. Rena dresses it right away. While she is doing that, Marta asks for one of the missing antibiotic packs by name without thinking. Rena looks up at her and says, "You knew what was gone." Marta realizes too late that she named the exact brand from the original fridge list, not the new tote stock. She says she heard Rena reading it out loud yesterday. Rena says she read the count after the plane sortie, not the old missing list. The room tightens around that. Marta does not crack. She only looks tired and irritated. "I hear more than you think from the galley," she says. "That's all." Erin lets it go for the moment, but I see the mark it leaves. By noon, Joanasi says the station is done. Not today in the physical sense. Not this minute. Done as a long-term hold. He lays the route map on the common room table and points with the end of a spoon. The seasonal over-ice freight line to the South Maintenance Warehouse is rough but passable if the weather holds another day or 2. After that, pressure movement near the narrow channel could open the old crack field wider and turn the line into a gamble with machines and feet both. He says the strangers near the berm know the same thing. If they have been wintering in this region, they are waiting for us to weaken or move. Erin asks how many hours of travel if the hauler stays healthy. Joanasi says 12 to 14 with the load we can carry, and 1 stop at the old cash shed if the door is intact. Noah says the hauler can do it if the new belt goes on clean, and if we stop pretending the station is the safer option. That pushes the whole room into planning mode, whether anyone likes it or not. I redraw the fuel board for travel instead of shelter. Main tank remaining, transfer drums, machine consumption by mile over sea ice, weight of cargo versus burn rate, weight of people versus cargo. We cannot bring everything. That fact strips a lot of denial out of the talk. Grant wants core samples and field drives. Noah wants tools, filters, spare hose, and the battery heater kit. Rena wants the med tote, clinic pouch, fluids, wound stock, and wash supplies. Marta wants food and stove fuel. Dean wants the comms case and antenna booster. Joanasi wants route flags, rope, snow saw, recovery boards, and the secondary sled repair box. Erin listens till everyone is talking over one another, then starts writing categories on the board. Heat, fuel, med, food, navigation, repair, defense, comms. If an item does not fit one of those, it waits till there is extra weight margin. There is no extra weight margin. That afternoon the strangers make their move. Not a charge, not a siege, a test. Callach spots the broad one near the outer fuel drum rack dragging a hose through the drift while the other 2 hold back by the berm. Erin sends Joanasi and Noah to the service hatch with the flare gun and the rifle. She does not let them step fully out. Joanasi opens the hatch enough to put the barrel through and calls once for the man to back away from the rack. The broad man looks up, freezes, and keeps one hand on the hose. The second warning is a flare into the snow 6 feet from his boots. He jumps backward, drops the hose, and stumbles into the drift. One of the other men yells from the ridge for us to lower weapons and act civilized. Erin takes the handheld from Joanasi and says, "You came to steal fuel from a sealed station after lying about your position. Leave, or you'll lose the machine too." That line lands. The broad man scrambles back towards the ridge. The tracked unit pulls away minutes later, low and ugly, engine note carrying on the wind till it fades. The fuel siphon attempt gives me the second crack in the theft picture. The hose they dropped is from our machine bay inventory. Blue stripe, cut brass fitting on one end. Black tape wrap near the middle where Noah repaired a split last month. We kept 2 hoses like that. One is on the wall. One went missing 3 days ago and Noah thought he had misplaced it near the drum transfer stand. He says that now while holding the recovered hose in gloved hands, staring at it with his mouth set hard. Someone inside the station either handed those men gear or lost it where those men could take it. Grant says it could have gone missing during the storm when outside work was messy. Noah says he tied the repair wrap on the hose himself and knows when it vanished. He turns to Erin. Search the lab crates. Search everything with his name on it. He does not say Grant. He does not need to. This time we find the first hidden stock, not the meds. Worse in a way. Under a false cardboard layer inside one of Grant's specimen foam boxes, we find vacuum-sealed energy gels, 2 bags of nuts, coffee packets, water purification tabs, and one of Rena's missing intravenous bags wrapped in lab paper. Grant stands by while Erin lifts each item out and sets it on the table. He goes pale only when the intravenous bag appears. He starts with the line I expected. He says the food was reserve stock in case the lab wing got cut off during a storm event. Erin asked whether the intravenous fluid was for preserving ice cores too. He says no. That one he took for the person most likely to need advanced care if the station broke down. Rena asks which person he had in mind. Grant says he had not decided. That earns him more silence than shouting would have. He built a private margin and waited to choose who counted. Erin takes his keys, his multi-tool, and his satchel right there. She does not put him out. She does not need to. Losing control in front of everyone strips him enough. The full medical stash appears 3 hours later, and it is not in Grant's gear. It is in the laundry room. Marta hid it in a detergent bucket behind folded towels, and 3 empty bleach jugs nobody had touched since the last deep clean. Rena finds it by accident while repacking wash supplies for travel. 2 antibiotic packs, 4 anti-inflammatory syringes, 2 insulin vials, 1 sedative case, 1 intravenous bag already taken by Grant from the clinic stash before Marta moved the rest. The second gap explains the noise I heard in the galley 2 nights ago when I thought Marta was only resetting the dryer. Erin brings the bucket to the common room table and sets it down in front of her. Marta does not deny it. She says she took the stock after Curtis turned, and after the first body reached the wall. She says once the station went into zones, the clinic belonged to whoever could stand closest to it, and she was not going to let the people at the far end of the room go without if order fell apart. It is a practical answer and an ugly one. She did not take the meds for money or excitement. She took them for a smaller circle than the rest of us. That may be worse. Erin makes the only call she can. The meds go back under Rena's lock. Marta keeps galley control but loses unsupervised access to storage. Grant keeps his hands visible and sleeps nearest the center of the common room, not near the doors or the crates. Nobody gets thrown out of the group. We are past the point where losing a body helps. Trust is gone anyway. That part is done. The room acts differently after that. No more casual backs turned. No more stepping away from open bins. Even simple tasks change shape. When Marta portions food, Ava counts the packs aloud. When Noah refuels the hauler heater, Callum stands beside him. When Dean checks the comms case, I write the serial numbers of the battery packs into the transport log. None of us says the word trust again. There is no use for it. Departure prep takes the rest of the day and half the night. Noah installs the new hauler belt and both filters, while I sit with the maintenance manual and the part list under a magnetic task light, turning pages with gloved fingertips when he calls out torque values or routing marks. He gets grease in the new belt once, swears, cleans it, and starts the alignment check over from the top. That costs us an hour and saves the whole machine. Joanasi and Callum strip the root gear from the wall boards and lay it on tarps in order of use. Marker flags, rope, shovel heads, snow saw, jack plate, spare track pins, toe straps, stove fuel, canvas roll, repair box, spare goggles. Rena builds the med load in 2 cases instead of 1, so we do not lose all treatment if a sled tips or a latch fails. Marta vacuum seals soup base, oats, dried meat, crackers, and coffee into narrow packs that will ride tighter than the original boxes. Dean tests the shortwave and SAT handset one last time, and then has to be told twice not to announce our movement window over any band. I spend most of that time with a scale, a marker, and 3 columns on a legal pad. Weight, fuel cost, category. Every argument turns into numbers for me. The main hauler can take all of us with stripped cargo, or fewer of us with enough cargo to survive 12 to 14 hours in the open and a bad stop at the old cash shed. We solve it by using one scout snowmobile on a short leash ahead of the hauler and keeping the tow sled so light it almost feels insulting after all the work of packing. That means I have to cross out more items than I keep. 2/3 of the science gear stays. Most personal bags get cut to 1 layer of clothing, 1 pair of socks, 1 hard item if it fits a boot box. Dean loses half his spare cables. Grant loses all sample cases but 1 drive pack small enough to fit inside his parka. He looks at the row of abandoned core boxes in the lab, and I can tell he is watching more than material go. The expedition he came north to control ends in a pile by the wall. Erin and I build the deception plan from what the station can spare. The old storage module off the service side still has a portable heater, 1 dim work light, and a cracked vent cover that throws a weak heat signature when the unit runs. Noah says the heater will give us maybe 3 hours before the fuel bottle dies. 3 hours is enough if the strangers or the wall figures spend even part of the morning pressing the wrong side. We wire the timer into the module after midnight with all interior lights off and only shielded headlamps aimed at the floor. Joanasi drags 1 body line in the snow past that side of the station with a hook on a rope, trying to thicken the scent track without opening the main wall. Nobody comments on the work. It only gets done. The station tries one last time to hold us. At 4 in the morning, the machine bay outer door refuses to seat after Noah checks the hauler warm-up. Ice in the lower channel. The warning light stays amber no matter how hard he throws his shoulder into it. Wind is up, and the figures on the warm side have shifted closer to the generator hut, which puts them inside earshot if the latch slaps. Callach holds the door while Noah strips the inner plate. I kneel with a lamp and see the cores when the plate comes free. Fabric, hair, and frost packed into the lower track from repeated pressure outside. Something had been wedging fingers or clothing into the seam from the other side and working it deeper each time the door flexed. We clear it by hand, flush the track with hot water from a thermos, and salt the channel lightly so it will close once. Only once is all we need. We leave at 6:10 under flat dawn light and ground drift moving low over the ice. The decoy module heater kicks on exactly when planned. From the service camera feed, I watch 2 of the wall figures change direction and lean toward that side. Good enough. 1 body is frozen against the machine bay door itself, shoulders locked to the steel by blown ice. Noah and Joanesi pry it off and drag it clear on a tarp before the hauler rolls. No speeches, no count. Everyone knows the order. Callach out first on the snowmobile with the shielded lamp and root poles. Joanasi riding on the hauler step for the first quarter mile to watch the drift edges. Noah driving. Erin in the passenger seat with the rifle across her knees. Rena and Marta on the rear bench strapped in beside the med cases. Ava on the floor between cargo bins. Dean and Grant on the tow sled bench wrapped in blankets and hard feelings. I ride in the rear corner with the fuel ledger inside my coat and the short map board on my lap. When Noah eases the hauler out through the door, no one looks back at the common room. We had already left it piece by piece all night. The first hour is the cleanest. The route south runs across hard wind slab, with old freight stakes half buried, but readable enough when Callach circles each one and flashes the shielded lamp twice. The hauler belt holds. Engine temp steady. Tow sled light. Our speed never gets good, only acceptable. But acceptable feels rich after the station. I keep fuel burn against distance in my notebook, updating every time Noah taps the tank sight and calls a level at the planned stops. Rena checks Ava's cut and my torn shell area again under the cab light during one slow section. No redness on either. Marta passes narrow food packs hand to hand, so nobody opens more than needed. Grant says nothing for nearly 2 hours. Dean says too much till Erin tells him the window glass does not need commentary. At mile 7, counted off the flagged route and Noah's odometer guess, the first pressure ridge forces us down to walking pace. It is not a wall of blue ice or anything dramatic. It is a long broken rise where the sea ice has shoved against itself and settled into hard folds and cracks with drift packed between them. Kalak parks the snowmobile, walks the crossing with the probe pole, and marks the line with 2 new flags. We unload half the tow sled to lighten the pull and walk the med cases, 1 fuel can, and the comms box across by hand. Grant reaches for the drive pack under his coat before he reaches for the food bin. Joannazi notices and says, "Carry rope first." Grant carries rope first. The hauler creeps over with the track biting and slipping in short jerks. Once the rear end slews left and the tow sled noses toward a slot in the ice wide enough to swallow a boot. Noah corrects slow, no shouting, and the whole train settles back in line. The strangers find our trail before noon. We do not see them at first. We hear the tracked unit as a faint pulse behind the wind. Then Kalak spots them through the binoculars from the next rise and raises one arm over his head twice. Noah stops the hauler in the lee of a drift swell, while Joannesi and Erin climb out for a look. The 3 men are far back, maybe a mile, following our route but not charging. Smart. They know if they rush across unknown ice off our line, they may lose the machine first. One of them comes on the open band again, same voice. He says our station is no place to go back to, and we should talk while the route is open. Erin answers only enough to buy space. She says we will talk at the old cash shed if they stay 300 yards off until then. The man asks who is injured. Erin cuts the transmission. He asks too much every time. The old cash shed is half standing when we reach it around midday. One wall has slumped. The door is off the hinges and frozen in the drift. Noah wants 10 minutes to check the hauler belt tension and warm the engine compartment before the worst stretch. Joannazi says 5. They settle on 7. Rena uses the stop to force water into everyone and check hands, cheeks, and eyes for cold damage. Marta opens the thinnest lunch packs. Dean tries the SAT handset under a thermal blanket and gets nothing but a dead tone. Grant sits on an upturned fuel crate and stares at the 3 men holding off beyond the marker poles. The broad one keeps a hand on the tracked unit cab. The limping one walks a small circle, never coming closer. The third, the radio man, steps out in front where we can see his empty hands. He is in his 40s maybe, beard iced, face too calm for the conditions. He asks for a talk with one person at halfway distance. Erin refuses that too. The negotiation starts and nearly ends in the same minute. The radio man says his crew has antibiotics, extra diesel, and a second machine if ours fails. He says he only wants a share of our fuel and passage south inside the quarantine at the warehouse. Erin says no one is riding our line without full names and medical checks. He answers that medical checks are for people with options. Joannesi steps up beside her and says the line is moving in 4 minutes with or without them. The broad man gets impatient and trudges closer across the flagged path, carrying what looks like a siphon can in one hand. Kalak raises the rifle and tells him to stop. The broad man takes 3 more steps, not charging, testing. Erin fires 1 round into the ice 10 feet in front of his boots. The crack carries farther than the shot. The broad man jerks back. The limping man grabs his sleeve and drags him away cursing. The radio man's face changes for the first time. He looks at the crack line in the ice, then at our hauler, and realizes this route can break under all of us if he keeps pushing. He signals his crew back with 1 short chopping motion. Noah says, "Move now," and nobody argues. The long stretch after the shed is the part Joannesi warned us about. Narrower line, more tide flecks under the snowskin. Old crack field ahead, wind from the side. No shelter worth the word for miles. Kalak scouts farther out now, leaving the lamp off and using only the probe and flags when he has to. Noah slows the hauler till the engine sounds sick to my ear, even though the gauges hold. Every few minutes the track hum changes where the surface density shifts under us. I watch the tow sled runners instead of the horizon. When they start chattering, I know the slab is hard, and the next dip will pull at the hitch. Dean gets sick once over the side of the sled, and then stops talking for nearly an hour. Marta moves up to the cab step at 1 stop, and tells Noah the food packs are freezing too solid in the open bin. We rework cargo right there, moving the med fluids deeper inside, and the hard food to the outer edge. Small changes. All of them count. The second confrontation with the strangers happens without radio. We crest a low rise and find their tracked unit off our line to the east, trying to parallel us on their own path to cut ahead. Bad choice. The broad man is outside the cab, knee-deep in churned powder, with one hand buried under the left track housing. Their machine has broken through a weak skin and nosed into softer ice. The radio man waves once, not friendly, only practical. He wants us to stop, maybe tow, maybe bargain. Erin does not even look at Noah when she says, "Keep moving." The broad man shouts something lost in the wind. The limping man points at us with both arms and then at the trapped machine. Joanasi does not turn his head. "If we stop there," he says, "we join them." Grant twists in the sled for one last look at the men as we pass beyond hearing. That is the last time we see the tracked unit clearly. Mid-afternoon, the route opens into the crack field. Wide, flat sections broken by dark seams where the snow is thin and the ice beneath has shifted apart, then closed, then shifted again. Some seams are finger width, some are boot width. A few show black water breathing slow below a thin crust. Kalak stops, probes, marks a line, then changes it 10 yards left. Joanasi walks out beside him, and the two men argue in low voices over one section, with a drift hump hiding the far edge. Erin lets them argue. That alone tells me how bad it is. Usually route decisions come fast from those two. Now each step gets tested before the next. We unload again, then unload more. Fuel cans, repair box, one med case, comms case, personal bags. I take 2 trips carrying weight over ground I do not trust and come back for the drive pack Grant tries to move under his arm without asking. I tell him to hand it over. He says it is all he has left of the expedition. I tell him he can carry it after the fuel goes across. He gives it up only when Erin turns toward us. The break happens on the 3rd pass. Not under the hauler, under the sled. One runner punches through a crust seam hidden under blown powder and drops to the frame rail. The hitch twists. One med case slides off the side and bumps into the snow lip over open water. Rena lunges for it and I catch the back of her harness before her next step. Joanasi shoves a probe pole under the case, flips it back onto solid ice, and then the seam widens with a wet grinding sound that shuts every mouth in the group. Noah cuts the engine. Nobody moves for 2 seconds. Then everyone moves at once under Erin's voice. Weight off the sled. Now. No debate. Marta drags food packs by the straps. Ava takes the rope coils. Dean tries to lift the comms case and slips to one knee. Grant grabs the drive pack first, sees Erin looking, and drops it for the fuel can. Good choice. Late. The seam widens another inch while Noah and Kalak jack the sled frame enough to free the stuck runner. When they get it clear, the left runner stays bent inward and scrapes the next 100 yards with a thin metallic scream that I know will carry too far. That sound brings in what the route left behind. We hear movement at our rear before we see it. 2 figures on foot from the line behind us, drifting in on the haul track. Maybe from an abandoned field shelter. Maybe pulled off the station trail long after we passed. Hard to say. They are spread far apart, not a wave. Only a problem growing in open country, where we cannot afford delay. Kalak turns and drops one with a controlled shot when it gets inside the flag line. The second keeps coming till Joanasi catches it with the catch pole and drives it sideways into a crack lip, where it stops moving after a short struggle. No one talks about the shot. Everyone hears how far it runs across the ice. The strangers hear it too. We pick up their radio man on the band 10 minutes later, voice sharper now. He says we are drawing bodies down the line and that he can help us reach the warehouse if we stop pretending to be a closed camp. Erin asks one question before cutting him off. How far back are you? He laughs once without warmth and says close enough. Joanasi tells Dean to switch bands and power the main set down for the next hour. Dean obeys without argument. That surprises me more than the radio call. He has finally decided listening is not the same as control. The final hours south are slow, ugly work. The sled runner keeps scraping. One rear tie snaps, and Marta has to crawl onto the cargo stack to retighten food bags with numb hands, while Rena spots her from the ground. Ava rides in the cab for one stretch when her boot welt starts separating from the sole, and Noah warms it near the floor vent before lashing it with cord. Grant goes quiet enough to disappear into the load till he sees the distant black line of shore structures. and asks if that is the warehouse. It is not. Only the old weather mast and a pump shack half buried in drift. The warehouse is farther, low against the shore ridge where a service road would be if any road here stayed road all year. My fuel notes get tighter as the sight tube falls. We have enough if nothing else goes bad. We do not have enough for another full detour, a tow, or an hour idling in a fight. We reach the narrow channel at dusk. This is the one Johannesy circled on the map back at the station. The ice here lies between shore pressure and outgoing tide, which means it never settles the same way twice. Kalak walks the line. Johannesy walks it after him. Then Erin goes 20 yards onto it herself before Noah can stop her and comes back with one word. Fast. The plan changes on the spot. Snowmobile across first light and empty. Rope line over. People across on foot spread out. Hauler last with half load. Tow sled stripped and hand pulled. That means leaving weight behind on the north side for 2 separate crossings. We sort with no space for attachment. One food box stays. One spare tool roll stays. Dean's backup antenna stays. Grant's drive pack almost stays. He looks at me while I hold it and says, "If we leave that, months are gone." I hand it back only after he clips it under his parka and drops his second clothing bag in exchange. The channel takes Johannesy. It happens during the whole line transfer, not during some big dramatic collapse. He is on the north side of the channel moving the last fuel can toward Noah when the crust edge under one foot shears away. He does not fall clean into open water. One leg goes through to the thigh, and the opposite knee slams down on the lip. The ice around the hole spiderwebs out under him. Kalak throws flat with the rope before Johannesy can shift his weight and make it worse. We get the rope under both arms and pull him back onto the plate, but the can is gone, and the hole widens enough to cut off the exact path we used 30 seconds earlier. Johannesy gets out soaked to the waist on one side and tries to stand. Rena gets him down again and strips the frozen outer layer in the lee of the pump shack wall, while Noah and Erin stare at the channel and recalculate everything without saying a word. Johannesy tells us to keep moving before the line changes again. His jaw is working against the cold and his speech is clipped, but the order is clear. He does not ride the outside after that. He goes into the cab floor space under blankets, and Rena starts the rewarming sequence with dry base layers, heat packs wrapped in cloth, and careful checks every few minutes. The loss of the fuel can hurt less than the loss of time. Dusk is almost gone when the strangers show themselves one final time on the north side of the channel, silhouettes against the drift line with their tracked unit nowhere in sight. Maybe they abandoned it. Maybe it broke. The radio man calls across open air this time. No speaker, no pretense. He asks for the rope line and a pull across before the tide opens the gap wider. Erin does not answer. None of us does. We are too far across to help without reopening our own route, and everyone knows it. The broad man shouts that we are leaving men to freeze. Noah keeps the hauler moving. The radio man says one more thing before the wind takes his voice. "You'll do the same again." He might be right. That does not change the line we hold. When I look back one last time, the 3 men are shrinking into grey with the channel between us and the flags whipping low over the crossing we barely made. The maintenance warehouse comes into view fully after dark, a low rectangular shape against the shore ridge with one sodium lamp burning over the loading bay and another dead fixture hanging crooked beside it. 2 smaller utility sheds sit off to the right. One tracked plough is parked half buried under drift. No waving crew, no flood of relief. Only one hard white beam sweeping once across our approach and stopping on the flags Kalak set as he rode ahead to announce us from cover. Erin makes us halt outside rifle range and puts the shortwave in Dean's hand. "You talk," she says, "and you say only what Rena gives you." Dean nods faster than I have seen him move all day. Rena writes the message on a scrap of pad paper anyway. Number of people, exposure history, 2 known turns at station, no current symptomatic crew, 1 cold water exposure under management, request quarantine intake, fuel, and secured shelter. Dean reads it exactly. The beam stays on us for nearly a minute before a reply comes from the warehouse speaker. "Unload weapons to the snow and back away. You enter by order only." We do it. Rifle, flare gun, sidearms. Noah and Erin kept under coats, one by one into the snow 10 yards ahead. Then we back away with palms visible and wait while two figures in insulated suits come out from the loading bay with a sled and long-handled tongs to move the weapons offline. They are not playing. Good. The bay door opens after that. Not wide, only enough for the hauler nose to enter. We are directed into a side service garage instead of the main warehouse. Concrete floor, drain trench, 2 cots stacked against the wall. A diesel space heater on the far side behind a cage. No chairs, no welcome language, only procedure. Everyone offloads in order. Boots into marked bins, outerwear into bags. Hands up for visual check. Rena and the warehouse medic talk through our exposure log line by line while I hand over the ledger pages. He reads each timestamp with a gloved finger and asks only one question. Who kept this? Erin points at me. He nods once and keeps reading. Jonasi is taken through a separate side door for hypothermia treatment after Rena argues successfully that he needs active care now, not after morning. Kalak goes with him and does not ask permission twice. The rest of us stay in the garage under guard. Marta sits on the floor against a pallet of de-icer sacks and closes her eyes without sleeping. Ava leans against the med case and stares at the drain in the concrete. Dean tries to ask the guard what news came from the South communities and gets nothing but a shake of the head. Grant sits with his drive pack clutched under both forearms and finally looks his age instead of his title. Noah kneels by the hauler wheel well and puts one palm against the warm housing, as if he is making sure the machine made it in with us and did not disappear when he looked away. Erin stands till the guard tells her to sit. Then she sits without protest, elbows on knees, eyes on the door. The warehouse medic comes back near midnight with a second guard and asks for our names again one by one. No one argues with repeated questions anymore. That habit got burned out on the ice. He tells us Joannessi is stable and warming, Kalak is clean, and the warehouse will hold us under observation for at least 48 hours. No one enters the hamlet proper from this garage. Food and water will come through the side hatch. Waste goes into sealed bins. Any fever, confusion, aggression, or new wound gets reported at once. Noah asks about fuel. The medic says the warehouse has enough for itself and maybe enough to stabilize our hauler if the intake filters are not fouled. Grant asks about communications south. The medic says all non-essential comms are locked down and any messages will be routed after quarantine review. Dean looks down at that. He knows what it means. The radio is no longer his to manage. Once the door shuts, the room finally lets go of motion. Not comfort, only motion. No one has another task to reach for. My hands keep trying to find a board, a pen, a chart edge. There is nothing left to update except the page I still carry in my inner pocket. I take it out and finish the last line of the outside contact ledger using the warehouse crate as a desk. 2346. Arrived South Maintenance Warehouse. Quarantine intake in progress. Strangers last observed north side of channel before full dark. Station status unknown. I stop there. I do not write abandoned. I do not write lost. I do not write anything that guesses beyond what I saw. Rena sits beside me when I cap the pen. She has one of the warehouse blankets around her shoulders and her hair tied back again with a strip cut from a gauze wrapper. She asks whether I gave the medic every page. I tell her yes. Copies too. She says good and leans her head against the cold wall for a second. Across the room, Marta opens one eye and asks whether the food pack stayed with the hauler or got taken. Noah answers that the hauler stayed inside the outer bay and the cargo stayed with it. Marta closes her eye again. Grant asks in a voice so low I barely catch it whether anyone at the station would have made it if we had held one more night. Erin answers from the other wall without looking at him. No one knows. Stop asking questions with no numbers. He nods to the floor. I lie down on the concrete cot frame an hour later with my coat under my head and the smell of diesel heat in the garage air. The warehouse lamp outside the high window throws a yellow strip across the far wall. Somewhere beyond that wall, men are moving pallets, checking gauges, and deciding who gets let farther south. The station is behind us in the dark with the decoy heater long dead, the common room cold, the med board pinned up by the wash station, and the south corridor shut down where the crawl space breach started. The three strangers are out on the line somewhere north of the channel if the ice did not take their route away. I think about the first page of the ledger and the last one. about how both looked neat even when nothing around them was. Then I fold the notebook closed, slide it under my coat, and keep my eyes on the garage door till sleep gets there first. And that's where we'll stop for now. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me how the story hit you, what moments worked, what didn't, and what you'd want to hear next. And a big thank you to everyone supporting the channel. You keep this project alive. Until next time, Survivor, Jack's Nightmares, signing off.